Let's get into my top 25. I'm going to post up my top 25 for this week on the virtual whiteboard. This is not the AP or the coach's poll or any other person's top 25. This is my personal top 25. Then I'm going to talk about winners and losers from the previous week of college basketball. I'm going to tell you who's in and who's sitting outside the bubble right now. So let's go ahead and get to that, and let's talk some college hoops. So I don't want to talk about every team in the top 25 that I have here that I'm showing you, otherwise this video would take forever. My videos tend to go kind of long anyway because I'm trying to get you a lot of information out there, and I have so much info about the sport that I can ramble on and on forever. So I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, but I'm sure it's going to go long. Let me just hit a few points about my top 25. Number 25, I have East Tennessee State. I just want to talk about them really quick, and they are one of my winners from this previous week. I think East Tennessee State is an at-large team. Now, they come from the Southern Conference. The SoCon, it's not a well-known basketball conference. It's traditionally a mid-major, one-bid league. But it's a really good conference, and this conference has gotten better and better and better through the previous years. Last year, they would have been a two-bid conference had Wofford not won the conference tournament, because Wofford was absolutely an at-large last year. So if someone else had won the conference tournament, either Greensboro or East Tennessee or whoever, you would have saw the SoCon get two bids last year. I think the SoCon will get two bids this year if East Tennessee does not win the conference tournament. If either, whoever, Furman or Greensboro or Mercer or whoever wins the tournament, I still think East Tennessee gets in as an at-large with one caveat. You just got to win your first game in the SoCon tournament. You're the 1 seed. You're playing the 8 seed. If you lose to the 8 seed, that would be a bad loss, and you could be in trouble, and you could be sweating come Selection Sunday. I think as long as ETSU wins that first game, I think they're going to get an at-large bid, and I think they absolutely deserve it. I think ETSU is a really good team. What makes them a really good team? One, they have a very good coach in Steve Forbes. He's an outstanding coach. Two, they have kind of the recipe that it takes to be successful in college basketball. You have your teams like Kentucky and Duke, who are the most talented year in and year out, but they start tons of freshmen. They have tons of 18, 19-year-old guys carrying the team. Now, granted, they are going to be the future stars of the NBA, right? Look at Duke last year, all freshmen. Zion, RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish. They were all 18-year-old freshmen. They're all going to be great pros. They're all going to be millionaires. They're going to be stars at the next level. But right now, they're 18-year-old freshmen playing in college. ETSU is a team of dudes. If you want to look at a Power 5 team that you could make this same kind of comparison to in terms of having older dudes like men on the court as opposed to kids, I would take Seton Hall. And we're going to talk about Seton Hall here in a little bit as well as a team to watch out for come March. And the reason I like East Tennessee, the reason I like teams like Seton Hall, they're a bunch of redshirt juniors and seniors. They're 22, 23-year-old men, not 18-year-old boys playing. So they may not have the most talent on the roster. Certainly ETSU, they have no 4-star, no 5-star talent on the roster at all. They might not even have a 3-star guy on the roster. I'm not sure, I'd have to look that up. But they have a bunch of older dudes that are well coached, that have developed, that have been in the program for years, and it gives them an advantage. It gives them an advantage. They have experience. They have toughness. I really like this East Tennessee team. I think they're a tournament team. So I just want to touch on that. What other notes do I have on the top 25? I don't have Penn State or Colorado in my top 25. Both of these teams are absolutely trending the wrong direction. I like both of these teams. I always root for the underdog. Like when a blue blood takes on an underdog in the tournament, I always root for the underdog. So, I'm always rooting for a team like a Colorado or a Penn State or a Dayton or a San Diego State, or, someone who's not in the mainstream. Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, those teams are there every year. And of course, I try to make money off them when the time is right, being here in Las Vegas. But just in terms of being a pure fan, not only do I bet this sport every day, but it's my favorite sport. I'm a huge fan of college basketball. I'm always rooting for the little guy. If I have no dog in the fight in terms of a financial situation, I'm always going to root for the little guy, the underdog. So I would love to see Penn State and Colorado make deep tournament runs this year, but both teams are just trending in the wrong direction. I don't have either one of them ranked. I know Penn State is ranked in both polls. I'm not sure about Colorado. I think they may have dropped out of the polls as well. It's shocking to me to see West Virginia even mentioned in the polls. Now, I don't think they were ranked in the AP or coaches poll, but they were in the others receiving votes category. To me, that's absolutely absurd. West Virginia is a team that, to me, if I were on the selection committee right now, I mean, I would maybe have them on the bubble and in serious trouble. Now, I know they're safely in. If you look at every bracketologist out there, West Virginia's safely in the tournament. But this team is going the wrong way, and they're going the wrong way fast. And, you know, I like Oscar Tshiebwe. I like, who's the other forward? Is it Culver, Derek Culver? I like their front court players. The problem is the guard play is just not very good. And in March, it's all about guard play. West Virginia, to me, is a team that, if West Virginia gets a 6 seed, 7 seed, whatever, 8 seed that they're projected to get right now, and you're like the 10 seed, the 9 seed, or whoever playing them, you got to be thrilled about your chances to advance in March, to win your first game in the NCAA tournament in advance. To me, West Virginia is not even one of the best 64 or 68 teams in the country right now, the way they're playing. So that's why I didn't have them anywhere near my top 25. Other notes on the top 25. Michigan State is definitely back and definitely a team to be afraid of. Michigan State looks like a team that can get to the Final Four. I want to talk about Tom Izzo here for a second. I'm not a big Michigan State fan this year. Like, I love Cassius, I love Winston, and my heart goes out to him for what he's been through this year. I think he's a great player, and I love watching him play. Some of Tom Izzo's antics this year have kind of rubbed me the wrong way, though, so I'm not big in the Michigan State corner. First, he cried about Joey Hauser not getting a transfer waiver, which is absolutely ridiculous because there was no hardship whatsoever that made the Hausers transfer from Marquette. And what's funny is you notice that Tony Bennett didn't even try to get a waiver for Sam Hauser. You know, the Hausers, one went to Michigan State, one went to Virginia. So Tony Bennett, who's a class act, understood that there's no possible reason for, you know, Sam Hauser to get the hardship waiver at Virginia, so he didn't even try to get one. Well, Izzo wanted to boost his roster as much as possible because he's trying to win a championship or whatever, so he tried to get Joey Hauser the waiver. When it got denied, he appealed. When the appeal got denied, he cried and resigned from the National Coaches Board or whatever, crying about how unfair it was that he didn't get a waiver. Well, guess what, Coach Izzo? You're not Coach K. You don't get to make the rules. You know, the NCAA is not afraid of you like they are of Coach K, and you don't get your way in every situation like Coach K gets. It's unfortunate, sorry, but you're not on that level yet. So you still have to play by the rules. And the way you cried about it and, you know, resigned from the board when you didn't get a waiver that you never should have got is absolutely ridiculous. And then on top of that, when your team started losing every game, and the media actually questioned your team and your players because they were preseason #1 but kept losing, then you cried about that and said it was unfair that my team should be criticized. Well, if you're #1 preseason and you lose 4 or 5 in a row and drop out of the top 25 or wherever you were a few weeks ago, then you deserve to be criticized. Sorry, Tom, that's the job you signed up for. If you're #1, if you have all this talent and all these expectations and you're playing like garbage, then maybe you should be criticized. So stop crying and just start coaching and get your team right. Anyway, that's my rant on Michigan State. But I do like the team. I do love Winston. I think he's an amazing point guard, and it's so fun to watch his court vision, his leadership. If I were running a college basketball team, he's absolutely the #1 guy I would want at the point. And with that being said, Michigan State is playing well now. They are ranked now, and they are definitely a threat to make the Final Four without question. So note on that, I do have Michigan State a little higher than the polls have them. I think they're very dangerous. Who else? Houston. I want to talk about Houston for a second. I think Houston is a very underrated, dangerous team come March. Houston has one flaw, and as I've said before, I watch every single game I can. I watch so much college basketball. I've probably watched almost every Houston game this season. I do, disclosure, I do have futures on them. I would make a lot of money if they won the national title. So, but this is not a biased commentary. This is just from me watching them. They have a weakness. They have a hard time closing out close games, especially on the road. Houston needs to find a closer in a close game. That is their weakness. But outside of that, man, this team is dangerous in March. If you're looking for a bracket buster like a 6 seed, 7 seed that could do some real damage and bust up a bracket, if you're in a bracket where and you want to pick a team that nobody's going to have in the Final Four, and if it hits, you're going to win your bracket, very possibly, Houston might be a team to look at, making an Elite Eight, Final Four type run. The way they rebound, the way they defend, their toughness, they're another one of these teams. Well, I was going to say they're an older team. They do have a lot of juniors on the team, but let me take that back. They're actually pretty young because the key players, the X-Factor players, are actually freshmen. So they have a good mix. They have a good mix of youth and some older guys. They only start one senior, Chris Harris, but they have some redshirt juniors. They have some redshirt sophomores. They do have guys that have been around and have some experience. The X factor for Houston are the two freshmen, Sasser and Mills. If Sasser and Caleb Mills are making shots, Houston is damn tough to beat. Damn tough to beat, the way they rebound, the way they defend. If you watch the game against Cincinnati, I think it was on Sunday, they played Cincinnati. It's a bad analogy to compare boxing or UFC and like college basketball, but it just reminded me of like a early Mike Tyson or like a John Jones in the UFC. They just came out and knocked Cincinnati out. Like Cincinnati played well in the beginning of the game, they had the lead early, but Houston was so much tougher on the glass. It felt like they had 40 offensive rebounds in this game. They just pounded them and pounded them and pounded them and wore them down and ended up winning the game fairly easy at the end. They look like men playing with boys, and that's a testament to how well they're coached. It's a testament to Kelvin Sampson. I'm really high on this Houston team, and I'll say something else about Houston here. For a team that's projected as a 7 seed on Bracket Matrix, the only future odds you can get on them right now is 50 to 1. And that's terrible value for a 7 seed. If I'm betting a 7 seed college basketball futures, I want at least 100 to 1. If I think the team's really good, really dangerous, I might take 100 to 1. For a 7 seed, a projected seed, you usually get 150 to 200 to 1, or sometimes even higher on futures. What I'm seeing on Houston everywhere now is 50 to 1. And that tells you that the sports book, the people who run the books in Vegas, they're not stupid. These sports book in Vegas, they make billions of dollars a year. They're not run by idiots. So that's telling you that Houston is way undervalued for their seed. Like, as far as how good Houston is, how dangerous they could be, they're being priced as like a 4 seed, like maybe even like a 3 seed. At 50 to 1, that's like 3 seed, 4 seed, 5 seed type odds usually. Keep your eye on Houston. They're really good. Anyway, one last point about the Cougars. They've lost 4 games in the AAC by a total of 6 points, all on the road. Their average margin of defeat is 1.5 points. All 4 losses on the road, which brings me back to my original point that they lack a closer. Houston needs to find a closer. If they find a closer consistently, I think they want that guy to be Caleb Mills. You can see he's getting a lot of shots. Marcus Sasser might end up being the closer. I was kind of hoping going into the season it would be Grimes. Grimes is a sophomore, a former 5-star who transferred in from Kansas. He hasn't really been able to embrace that role yet or whatever. But if they find a closer, watch out. Katie bar the door. Houston can make a run all the way to the Final Four this year. Last point on my top 25, last team I want to talk about, Seton Hall. I watched the Seton Hall game against Marquette. Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee is one of the toughest environments to play in if you're a road team. Marquette almost never loses at home. They got the brakes beat off them this week by Seton Hall. They got taken to the woodshed. They made it a little interesting at the end of the game, but if you didn't see the game, basically Seton Hall just beat them from start to finish. They were clearly the better team. This is the ceiling for Seton Hall. When Seton Hall plays like this, when there's a term in college basketball, there's a cliche that goes around in college basketball about good teams always stay connected. Good teams seem to be connected. Do they play connected? When Seton Hall is connected and bought in and playing for each other and playing hard and not complaining about playing time and not complaining about lack of shots, you know, the guys other than Myles Powell getting enough shots, when they're completely bought into what Willard's showing them and teaching them and trying to get them to do, to me, they have the highest ceiling in college basketball this year. I would throw Kansas in there, and I would throw Seton Hall. When Seton Hall is connected and playing at their ceiling, I think them and Kansas are the two best teams in college basketball. And the reason I would take Seton Hall over a team like Baylor in terms of pure ceiling is just their height, their size. Baylor's got great athleticism. They guard you, the way they guard you on the wings, the way the guards guard you, the way they harass the ball handlers, the way they trap on the wings. Baylor's great at that. But Seton Hall, they have so much size. With Romero Gill protecting the rim at 7'2", with Mamu, a perfect 6'10", 6'11", stretch 4 who can shoot the three, he can rebound, he can bang, and then when you take Gill off the floor, you bring in another rim protector, Ike Obiagu, who's 7'1", who's basically just as good as Gill on the defensive end. It's crazy how good the Seton Hall team can be. It's crazy how deep they are. They have so much depth at the guard position. It's not just all about Myles Powell and Quincy McKnight, who I think is a great, good senior leader point guard. They have Jared Rhoden. They have Shavar Reynolds. They have Miles Cale. There's so much to like about this team. And that was the problem with this team a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago when they had gone through a little funk where they had lost some games and the coach Kevin Willard had called his team out because guys were complaining about, not getting enough shots, not getting enough playing time. Look, that is a problem. When you have this deep and this talented a roster, playing time could be a problem. And, guys either buy in or they get selfish or whatever, but I love the way Willard handled it. He said, look, if guys are going to complain, if they're going to cry, if they're going to pout, I'll just play 6 or 7 guys and that's it. And the thing about, you can't only go 6 or 7 deep throughout an entire season. You run way too much of a risk of wearing down your players that way, possible injuries, etc. But in the college basketball tournament, in March Madness, you can easily go 7 deep and succeed. You can maybe even go 6 deep and succeed. The reason for that is, in March Madness, in the tournament, you get more timeouts, you get more breaks for commercials, advertisers, because this is where the NCAA is making all their money. March Madness is fun, it's great for fans, it's a good time, but it's also about making money, right, for the institutions, for the NCAA. So the commercial breaks are longer, you get more breaks, basically the players get more rest, so you can run a shorter bench. You don't have to go 10, 11 deep. You can easily go 6 or 7 deep, and most teams that go 8 or 9 deep trim it to 7 deep during the tournament. It's just kind of something you'll see. You won't see Florida State do that, teams like that, but Seton Hall, if guys are crying and they're not bought in, they can go 7 deep and win a national title. I have no doubt about that. So my final thing about Seton Hall, you saw the potential. You saw the ceiling in this game against Marquette. They absolutely slapped Marquette silly in this game. If they play like this, and especially Mamu, Sandro Mama Kulashvili, I don't even know how to say the last name, but just call him Mamu. When he plays like this, when he's second banana to Myles Powell, but playing like this, Seton Hall is just flat out good enough to beat anybody, anytime, anywhere. if he stays connected, I think Romero Gills, he's been connected all year. That's why he's made this giant leap out of nowhere to being probably the best rim protector in the entire Big East, one of the best rim protectors in the country. He's been phenomenal. So you know Powell's going to bring it every game. You know Gill's going to bring it every game. Quincy McKnight's going to bring it every game. When Mamu is bought in like this, watch out for Seton Hall. They're easily... If they get the 2 seed in the East, I will have them in the Final Four. If they get the 2 seed in the East and the ability to go to Madison Square Garden and play your regional semifinal and regional final there, I will definitely have them in my Final Four. We'll see where they get put on Selection Sunday. But okay, now let's go to winners and losers from this last week. Who are the winners? I've already talked about Seton Hall. I've already talked about East Tennessee State, as you know, they had big weekends. I want to talk real quick about a team that's probably not going to make any waves in the NCAA tournament, but I want to talk about Harvard. If you go back and look at my videos in my channel, when I did my preview series, I did a preview of Harvard where I had them ranked 24th, and I did this long, like probably 40-minute preview about the Crimson and what to expect from them this year. I was very high on Harvard this year. Now, if you told me their 2 best players weren't going to play all year, they were expected to have Seth Towns, they were expected to have Bryce Aiken all year. Seth Towns 2 years ago was Ivy League Player of the Year. Bryce Aiken last year was Ivy League Player of the Year. Neither of these guys have played at all this year. I think Bryce Aiken might have played like 2 or 3 games this season. Seth Towns has not played at all this season. So if you take those 2 guys off of Harvard, I wouldn't have even had them in the top 100 probably. So I think I get a pass on that one for having them ranked 24th. But I want to talk about them as a winner because I've quietly noticed they've won, 6 wins in a row for Harvard. They're 10-0 at home. And that 10-0 at home mark is important because they host Ivy Madness this year. The Ivy League is the only league that I know of where the team that hosts the conference tournament, it just automatically rotates every year. There might be another conference that does that. Most conferences either have established neutral sites set up or the top seed will host the tournament. I think like in the Big Sky, whoever's the number 1 seed just hosts the tournament. In the Ivy, it just rotates every year. So this year, Harvard is hosting it. And they only have 4 teams. Only the top 4 teams make Ivy Madness. So you only have to win 2 games and you're in the tournament. There's not 8 teams, there's not 12 teams, 15 teams, whatever, playing in a conference tournament. So the fact that they're hosting and the fact that they're in it, now they're in 2nd place in the Ivy League, I think you got to put Harvard as the favorite to win that tournament. Now, certainly Yale could win it. And I think Yale is probably the best team, especially with Harvard not having Seth Towns or Bryce Aiken. Yale's probably the best team. But the way Harvard's playing, the fact they're hosting Ivy Madness, I would not be surprised at all if Harvard makes the NCAA tournament. So I wanted to give a shout out to Tommy Amaker. I've been kind of tough on him on this channel about doing less with more talent. He's a fabulous recruiter. He's gotten top 25 recruiting classes. He's got lots of top 100 type players on his roster. Yet these guys have never made the tournament. This current group on this roster has never made the NCAA tournament, which to me is like, it's kind of a bad look for Tommy Amaker. He's done less with more than any coach in America probably. But you got to give credit where credit's due. They're playing well right now. He's doing a good job with this team, considering he's minus the best 2 players on the roster. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. Other winners this week, Providence. Winning at Villanova. I saw him, Joey Brackets has Providence a 9 seed. Now I knew Providence was in the tournament as of right now, but I didn't know they were that comfortably in to be a 9 seed. So shout out to Ed Cooley. They're a big winner this week. Looks like Providence is, if not a lock for the tournament, very close. I want to talk about 3 Big Ten teams. I don't know if the Big Ten has a team good enough to win the national title, but they are certainly the deepest league in the country, and they're going to have 10 bids. In my opinion, they're going to be a 10-bid league. I don't think they get 11. It's possible they can only get 9. It depends on what happens with Rutgers the rest of the way. But I think or possibly Indiana, but I still think Indiana's going to make it. So I'll say they're a 9 or 10 bid league. I want to talk about 3 teams that have really elevated their play in this league and are peaking at the right time and can be very dangerous going forward. I talked about Michigan State. Ohio State is looking like that team that everybody thought was a Final Four team in the non-con. They're, it's a long season. So you have ebbs and flows. You have arcs where you're playing well. Then you get stagnant. You don't play well. Ohio State was so good so early in the non-con, they kind of came out of nowhere. They were barely ranked in most people's preseason top 25, maybe around like 18th to 20th type of team. Some experts didn't even have them ranked in the preseason. I did. I think I had them 16th. They came out like gangbusters. They beat Kentucky. They smashed Villanova. I know they had some other good wins in the non-con, and a lot of people were saying, oh, Final Four team. Then they kind of went through a lull. Conference play happens. They're in a very tough conference. Every game it's like a meat grinder. They weren't playing well. Then everybody forgot about them. Now they're winning again. And now this is the time you want to be winning. This is the time you want to be playing well. We're less than 2 weeks away from Selection Sunday. Ohio State is playing very well. And the other team is Illinois. Illinois, same kind of thing. They were playing really well. Everybody was talking about them being this great dark horse, team that could make a Final Four run. Then they went on a 4 or 5 game losing streak, and then everybody forgot about them, and now they're winning again. I love this team at 150 to 1 future. It's the only current future that I think has value that I'm seeing out there. There's a couple decent long shots, but as I said earlier, and as I will repeat a lot on this channel, the later you get into the season, the harder it is to find value betting futures. Because Vegas knows who's good and who's not good. And the teams are priced accordingly. There's one place you can get Illinois futures at 150 to 1. I've been betting it for the last probably 2 weeks. I've probably hit it 6 or 7 times at 150 to 1. That's the only future out there right now that I'm consistently betting that I think has any value. So keep your eye on Illinois. I think they're playing very well. Let's go to bubble winners. Throw some teams out that are on the bubble that really helped themselves immensely this weekend. Stanford. I pretty much left Stanford for dead. In my opinion, just from watching them play and the eye test, and especially the way their offense looks at times, I'm not a big fan of this team. If they make the tournament, I think they're one and done. I think they'll be bounced very early, and I think whoever would draw them in the tournament would be very fortunate and very happy to play against them. But that being said, they have 4 wins in a row. They're getting wins at the right time. I think they're going to be a tournament team. They've definitely helped themselves. Virginia's a lock for the NCAA tournament. My opinion, it's not even a question. I know their net rating's not great. I know their offensive metrics are terrible, but they're 13-5 in the ACC. They're 13-5 in the ACC. I believe they're tied with, is it Duke? They might be tied for 3rd with Duke in the ACC. So they're a tournament lock, and they've strung together some really good wins, and they're playing well at the right time. And they have a great coach, and they're the defending champs. There's absolutely no doubt Virginia's going to be in the tournament. The only question is, how high is their seed going to be? The more they win, the higher the seed's going to be. I would guess UVA will be somewhere around I'm thinking maybe like a 7, possibly a 6. It just depends. If they win the ACC tournament, if they win out and win the ACC tournament, UVA could be a 5. I mean, they could maybe get on the 4 or 5 line, possibly. So anyway, they're in. Congratulations, Virginia. I still hate watching them play. That's the ugliest basketball you'll ever see. But you got to give credit where it's due. It's effective, and it wins, and Bennett's a great coach. It's hard to watch, but he's one hell of a coach. Other teams, UCLA. You're in first place in the Pac-12. That's absolutely unbelievable. And that just tells you that in college basketball, especially this season, any team can win. Anything can happen. A month ago, 2 months ago, UCLA was one of the worst teams in the entire Power 5. They lost to Hofstra at home. They lost to Cal State Fullerton, for God's sake, at home. I didn't think they were going to win 5 games in the Pac-12. I would have set their over-under at probably 5.5 wins, conference wins, going into that conference season. They are in first place in the Pac-12. They have a very good chance to get an at-large. I don't know how you leave major conference champions out of the tournament. So if UCLA wins outright, or even shares the Pac-12 crown, say with like Oregon, and say they don't get the auto bid, I don't see any way they get left out. I mean, at very worst, they're going to be first 4 in Dayton, or maybe like an 11 seed or something. But I think it would be a travesty to leave them out at this point. I know the resume has some holes in it. I know the net's not great. But if you win a major conference, you at least should be in Dayton, right? I mean, I don't know. So anyway, UCLA, it's unbelievable the turnaround that Mick Cronin has led there. Kudos to them. It's good to see UCLA good at basketball. As I said earlier, I'm more of a fan of the little guy than the blue blood. UCLA is a historic blue blood, but it seems like lately they've been more like the little guy. They're a blue blood that's good for college basketball. It's good to see a West Coast blue blood come back and win some games. Now, UCLA is nowhere near being that level. They're definitely not a Kentucky, Kansas, Duke type blue blood like they were years ago. But anyway, it's just good to see them winning, and I think you'll see them in the tournament. Oklahoma and Texas both had big weeks. No, this is not, I'm not talking about college football. I'm talking about college basketball here. OU and Texas had very big weekends. Texas has rolled off 4 in a row. I still think they're on the wrong side of the bubble, but if they keep winning, I think they will be in. They're 18 and 11. Same with Oklahoma. Oklahoma had some good wins. I know they've beaten Texas Tech recently. I think they swept West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to go back and look at that. But I know Oklahoma's had 2 big wins in a row. Texas has had 4 big wins in a row. I think Oklahoma's in as of right now. I think Texas is very close. As of right now, I think Texas would be a coin flip. So if they just keep winning, if they win win 1 game in the Big 12 tournament, I think they'd be safely in. We'll see what happens with them. Let's go to my losers from this last week. The number 1 loser to me, hands down, this is a team, granted, full disclosure, this is a team I have futures on at 1,000 to 1. And I thought I was absolutely making the bet of the century because of the top-end talent on this team. And they pissed me off and lost to a terrible New Mexico team this weekend, and that's Utah State. I was able to pick up Utah State futures at 1,000 to 1 at Caesars a couple of weeks ago. Why did I do that? Why did I do that on a team that was bubble territory, was clearly behind San Diego State in the Mountain West? I did it because they have 2 high-end future pro players on the roster. You have Sam Merrill and Neemias Queta. Neemias Queta is a future NBA player, possibly a lottery pick, but certainly he's going to make an NBA roster in the future without question. Sam Merrill may or may not make an NBA roster, but he's going to get paid to play professional basketball somewhere. He's either going to play in Europe or China, possibly could land a spot on an NBA roster because of the way he shoots, because he has decent size for a guard. I mean, he's 6'5". He's a 6'5" 2 guard who can really stroke it, great free throw shooter, smart player, makes good decisions. These 2 guys they should have Utah State head and shoulders above the Mountain West. As it worked out, no one expected San Diego State to be this good. Brian Dutcher's done a phenomenal job, and San Diego State's clearly the best team in the Mountain West. They're one of only 2 teams, I believe, that are top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. The Aztecs, San Diego State. But when you look at rosters, like this Utah State team should be a damn scary team to play and should have been a team that was a lock for the NCAA tournament, in my opinion. Now, early in the season, they didn't have Neemias Queta, which is why they struggled a little bit. And even when he came back, he had come off a very bad knee injury over the summer, playing for his native Portugal in the under-19 games. So they didn't have him in the beginning. They still beat LSU. They still beat Florida when he came back. But Queta was kind of a shell of himself when he first came back. He just wasn't 100%. You could tell that by actually watching the games, which I probably watched 20 Utah State games this season. A lot of their games are on the CBS Sports Network, and I I've broken down a lot of their film on the internet. I've watched a lot of their games on CBS Sports and on the internet. You could tell he wasn't 100%. So they hit a lull where they got smashed at Air Force. They took some bad losses early. They had that horrible meltdown against Boise State. But then as Keita got to 100%, I think he's 100% now, and Keita was posting double-doubles every game. You could see the team was playing good. They had ripped off some wins. They played really well at San Diego State. They held a 10-point lead at halftime. They did end up losing that game, but you could see the ceiling. I watched that game against San Diego State. I watched that first half, and I said, this is a team that when they play like this, when everyone's 100%, they could be downright dangerous. That's when I was taking 1,000 to 1. Well, I know I'm going on and long about Utah State, but seriously, I really watched this stuff, and I really bet this stuff, and it's just something that needs to be talked about, because all you had to do, in my opinion, all you had to do was go to the pit at Albuquerque against a New Mexico team that was 6-11 in conference. Coming into this game, 6-11. New Mexico was a disaster. They were getting beat up by everybody. All you had to do was go in and win this one road game. In my opinion, Utah State was pretty much a lock. Some people had them in, some people weren't so sure. I thought if they would have won this game and just won one Mountain West tournament game, they would have been a lock for the tournament. What do? They go and lose. This is a bad loss. This really hurts Utah State's chances. Now, I don't even know if I give them 50-50. You're going to have to win at least 2 Mountain West tournament games and get to the title game. That might not even be enough, because if you get to the title game and lose again to, say, San Diego State, that would be 0-3 against San Diego State, and the tournament might just say, look, you've had 3 shots at the Aztecs, you've lost every time. If you go 0-3 against this team, you're not going to win you're not a championship type team anyway. They might just leave them out with some of their bad losses. And it's just too bad, because I really like the potential. I really like the ceiling of this Utah State team. I think the only way you're going to feel safe is to get the auto bid and win the tournament. And anyway, it's just too bad. Utah State's biggest problem, you need a point guard. Craig Smith, you got to find a point guard, because Abel Porter is not getting it done. I'm sorry. I love Merrill. I love Keita. I love Justin Bean. Justin Bean is kind of the glue guy, does the dirty work, gets the, if Neemias Keita's not getting a rebound, Justin Bean's getting it, gets tons of rebounds for his size, plays above his size, plays above his athleticism. They have 3 really good players. The problem is, to win in college basketball, the most important position is point guard. I've said that a million times in my videos. No team without a good point guard has any chance of ever winning the national title. That's the problem with Louisville. Louisville probably would be the best team in the country, hands down, if they had a consistent point guard. I'm not saying they don't have good point guards. David Johnson will be a good point guard, but he's a true freshman. Fresh Kimball is just so hit and miss. That's the problem with Louisville. They need more consistent point guard play. They have everything else. They have everything else on the roster. Utah State, to me, is like a poor man's Louisville. You got everything else on the roster. Great shooting guard, great rebounders in the post, a great rim protector in Keita. They just have, I hate to say this about a kid who's playing college basketball, but to me, they just have trash point guard. Abel Porter is no threat to score. He can't shoot. He can't create. He's not fast. He's not athletic. I don't know why Craig Smith's not putting him on the bench and giving maybe Diago Brito a chance to run the point. Maybe Brito's not a point guard. Maybe he's a 2 guard. Maybe he doesn't have another point guard on the roster, true point guard on the roster. And that's the problem for Utah State. And it's just unfortunate. Anyway, I've talked enough about them. I had 1,000 to 1 futures. I was dreaming of them making a run to the Final Four, where even if I hedged, I would make enough to buy a brand new condo here at Mountain's Edge or in Southern Highlands, somewhere here in Vegas. But that dream's pretty much shot. You lost to New Mexico. You crapped the bet against a 6-11 team in the conference. Just sad. Other losers, Rhode Island. You have 1 game to make the tournament as an at-large. You play Dayton this week. You lose that game, you're out. You lose that game, you need to win the A-10 tournament and get the auto bid. You have no shot at an at-large if you lose to Dayton. That's your only hope. So good luck with that. You crapped the bed this week as well. You lost to Davidson last week. You got your butts kicked at home by St. Louis. I don't know what to say about that. URI, another team I have 1,000-to-1 futures on. I took 1,000-to-1 futures on URI because they have a good point guard. I actually like the backcourt. You got Fats Russell at the point. You got Jeff Doughton at the 2. I think both of those guys are really good really good backcourt tandem. They're experienced. They've been around for a while. They can score. They're mature. They're men. You know, like I was talking about earlier with East Tennessee State. East Tennessee State is a team of 22, 23-year-old guys who have played for 3-4 years. You know, Doughton, he's played for 4 years. Russell, I think, is a redshirt junior, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, he's been around for a while. I really like the backcourt, but for whatever reason, you're just losing bad games at the wrong time. Other losers, Rutgers. Rutgers looked like an absolute shoo-in for the NCAA tournament a month ago. If you don't win one of these last 2 games, they have lost, let's see, Rutgers has lost, what, 4 in a row, 3 in a row? They're 1-8 in true road games. They're now 18-11. They're 8-8, or is that correct? Or 9-9? They're 9-9 in the Big Ten. Gotta look at my notes here. I gotta write more legibly so I can see my own notes. 9-9 in the Big Ten, 18-11. 1-8 on the road. Your last 2 games are home to Maryland and at Purdue. If you lose these 2 games and go 9-11 and 18-13 with 1 road win, if I were on the selection committee, which I think I should be because I probably watch far more basketball than anybody on the selection committee, that's definitely a job I should have. I would have you out, without question. 9-11, 18-13, 1 true road win, you're out. So you better win at least one of these last 2 games. Now, the good news is Rutgers is damn near unbeatable at home. Maryland is not very good on the road, so this is a perfect opportunity. Your next game's at home against Maryland. In my opinion, you should win this game. Doesn't mean you will. Maryland is a talented team. Maryland's capable of winning, but you know, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Rutgers wins this game, and it's a game you need. So if you lose that and lose at Purdue, you're on the wrong side, in my opinion. It'll be better luck again next year for you guys, unless you win the Big Ten tournament, and we know that's not happening. So another loser, Liberty. You absolutely lost any chance you have at an at-large. Kiss your at-large chances goodbye. I know you're 27-4. I just said East Tennessee State is an at-large team in my opinion. They're also 27-4. But not all 27-4 teams are built the same and have comparable resumes. Perfect example, you both played at LSU. East Tennessee smoked LSU in Baton Rouge. They were clearly the better team. They dominated LSU from start to finish. I think East Tennessee State should be an at-large team. Liberty went to LSU and got smoked. East Tennessee smoked. Liberty got smoked. Liberty doesn't really have a quality win all year. Their best win is on a neutral against Akron. You've taken 3 losses to bad teams in the A-Sun because unfortunately every team in the A-Sun except for you is bad. So every single loss you have in conference is bad. The SoCon, East Tennessee's conference, is a good conference with good teams. Furman's a good team. UNCG's a good team. Mercer has really come on. Even the East Tennessee loss to Mercer at home, which is a bad loss and looked like a terrible loss earlier, it doesn't look so bad now because Mercer is actually playing well. Western Carolina is decent this year. The A-10 is just a bucket of crap and Liberty. So, did I say the A-10? The A-Sun is a huge pile of crap with Liberty at the top of it. You lost to Lipscomb. Your at-large chances are over. You better win the A-Sun tournament. Good news for you is you're a big favorite in that tournament. Okay, so that's it. That's up to date on what's going on in college basketball as of right now. Hopefully I've broken down what you need to know going forward into this week. You have the top 25. You have the bubble winners and losers. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll address them. If there's any team you want me to talk about in a future video, go ahead and either email me here on my channel or put it in the comments. I'll make a video about your team or answer any of your questions. Like I said, I bet this sport every single day of the year. If you have any questions about betting, futures, who I like, who I think might be a good bet in a conference tournament, hit me up. I'll let you know what I think. Next video I'm going to make. I will have another video coming out very soon. I will be making a lot of videos now that March Madness is starting. I will talk about what futures I like. I will go more into futures on the next video. I gave you Illinois at 150 to 1 on this video. I will talk about more futures in the next video. There's not too much value out there, but I'll break down what is out there and what might look good at this time. I'll also talk about bracket breakdowns. I'll have complete bracket breakdowns once the tournament is seeded. I will go through each region. I will make a video on each region and break that region down and give you my final four. But before that, I'll do some conference tournament previews and give you another top 25 next week. So anyway, that's it for this week. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.